If you notice your citrus leaves turning yellow, curling, or falling off, your tree is begging you for help. But don't worry, I'll show you exactly what to do. When I first started growing citrus trees, if I noticed that the leaves were turning a little bit yellow or maybe curling at the edges, I would mildly panic because I didn't know what the problem was or what I should be doing about it. But the reality is, and what I've come to learn after many years of growing citrus, is that you will have some of these problems, if not all of them, at some point. It really doesn't matter what a good job you're doing taking care of your tree, you're going to encounter some of these issues. Now, I don't know about you, but when I don't feel well, you can absolutely tell by the way that I look. I mean, my hair is going to be a mess. I might have pale skin. You could probably see bags under my eyes. It'll be pretty obvious that I'm feeling under the weather. It's the same thing with citrus trees and their leaves. The leaves are going to show you by what they're doing that something is wrong and that you might need to address a problem. Now, the leaves are really just the beginning, because what happens is if you notice issues with the leaves of a citrus tree, over time the tree is just going to get more and more stressed out. And the first thing a stressed out citrus tree is going to do is stop fruiting. So it'll drop fruit, it'll drop blossoms if there are any, or it'll just spend all of its energy trying to stay alive and pushing out new growth, and it won't fruit at all. So I don't know about you, the main reason I grow citrus trees is because I want fruit. So that's at least the point for me. So it's kind of an important thing to figure out. I take pretty good care of my citrus trees. They've been happy and healthy. They've been giving me really great fruit, but I'm still noticing some of these issues with my citrus leaves. So I'm going to decode for you what's going on with my citrus leaves, and it's going to be a lot of the really common things that you're going to see. So let's take a little bit closer look and see what we can figure out. First, I want to talk about one of the most common things you'll see on citrus leaves, and that is yellowing of the leaves. Now, this can look like a lot of different things. If you notice that the leaf is, or the tree is overall just more pale, that all of the leaves are a little bit yellowed, a little droopy looking perhaps, the most common culprit is overwatering. That's a really easy thing to do with citrus trees, especially if your soil isn't really well drained. So watch for that all over paling and kind of droopiness of the leaves. But another thing that can happen is if you notice the leaves are sort of just uniformly yellowish, that can also be an indication of a nitrogen deficiency. Citrus trees need a lot of nitrogen to not only grow leaves, but also to fruit. And so that's a really common one that you'll see in the leaves. Now, on my tree, I do have some yellowing leaves. I'm just going to pick one right now so I can bring it closer. So here's an example of another type of yellowing pattern you might see. You can kind of see that there is almost like a V-shaped green spot in the middle with yellowing around the edges. This is also a nutrient deficiency. Most likely it's magnesium. And so what I found with this tree, this Meyer lemon tree, I've had a lot of issues with just magnesium deficiency. And I do fertilize, but I found it really responds well to sprays of Epsom salt. So like about a tablespoon of Epsom salt, which is magnesium sulfate, in a gallon of water, and spray the leaves with that. And that has really helped, because if you notice on this tree, it's only on a few of the older leaves. And that's really important because certain nutrients are more mobile, which means that as the tree is putting out new growth, it's going to actually pull nutrients from the older parts of the tree to support the new growth. And that's where you'll often see nutrient deficiency on older leaves first. So that's something to keep an eye out for. There are other nutrients that could be deficient, and rather than just talk about them all right now, I want to point you to a resource I have on the Fruit Grove blog, which is all about yellowing citrus tree leaves and what it might mean. So it talks about all the different nutrient deficiencies and a lot of these issues that we're talking about here in a little bit more detail. So go check that out. Another thing that might be causing yellow leaves, in addition to overwatering or nutrient deficiencies, is a lack of sunlight. Citrus trees need a ton of sun, really direct sun, and the leaves should be this really deep, vibrant green. And so if they look just a little pale, a little lackluster and you're confident that you're not overwatering the plant, then you might want to consider putting it somewhere where it gets a little bit more sun. Another thing to look for is that often when a tree is root bound, if you're growing it in a pot like me, like most of us have to, then it's going to get root bound eventually. And so if the roots aren't able to get the nutrients that they need, and if they're just sort of stressed overall, don't have enough room, don't have enough soil, then that might show in just an overall paleness of the tree. Yellowing leaves is definitely one of the most common things that you'll see in citrus trees, but another one is curling leaves. So let's see what's going on there. Here's another one of these older curling, nutrient deficient leaves. So you can see that V shape there, but you also can see how curled it is, and that's pretty common too with certain nutrient deficiencies, especially magnesium and potassium. You might see the leaves curl over at the tip like that. But you could also see curling leaves that look a little bit more like this, although this might be something else. But often when leaves kind of cup like this, it can be a sign that the tree is drought stressed. I know I talked about overwatering a minute ago, and that is a really common problem, but it's also really common not to give citrus trees enough water. So check your soil, just stick your finger in the soil, see if it needs water. If you notice that it's a little bit dry, go ahead and give it a good drink. Take a look at this one. You see how the very edge of the leaf is rolled in like this? And look underneath. Whoop. You see that? Those little trails are telltale signs of citrus leaf miner, and you'll often see the edges roll in like this. Citrus leaf miners are tiny little moths that lay their eggs on especially newer growth on citrus trees. And then the eggs, the larvae, tunnel into the leaf and feed on it until they grow big enough to strike out on their own. And on mature trees, they're not too big a problem, but they really love young trees with a lot of tender, juicy leaves. So an easy way that I take care of it, for one thing, is to just remove the worst of the leaves that are affected by the leaf miners and dispose of them, not in your compost, because we don't want those guys getting into your other trees. Another thing you can do is when you notice the tree pushing out new growth is to spray preventatively with insecticidal soap or neem oil to keep the adult leaf miners from laying their eggs on the leaves. If that doesn't work, you can also use products containing spinosad, and that can help control the problem. I've never had to go that far. I've had good success just keeping an eye on it, removing affected leaves, and periodically spraying with insecticidal soap or neem oil. If you notice new growth curling up really badly and you know the problem isn't leaf miners, you might want to check for aphids. Aphids can feed on those baby leaves as well and cause them to curl up and look really distorted. The thing with aphids is that they are kept alive by ants. So if you have an aphid problem, there's a good chance you also have an ant problem. So the first step is to get rid of the ants that might be living in your pots, and I've got a whole separate video on how to do that, which I will link to. But as far as the aphids go, your best bet is to just spray them with a stream of water and knock them off the plant. Now, that's not one and done. You have to do that repeatedly, probably every few days, or they will come back. But once you've gotten rid of them, spray with, again, an insecticidal soap or neem oil to keep them from coming back. And that's going to be your best defense against aphids. Let's talk about a few more common things you might see on your citrus tree that I'm seeing on mine. So this general splotchy look, that might be just due to cold stress. Now, if it's not too bad, if it doesn't last very long, the tree will recover no problem. If it's really bad, those leaves will die and you may lose a little bit of the tree if there's a little more frost damage. My tree looks okay. I think it's going to recover just fine because it was protected in my garage, but that is something to watch out for. Another big one that you need to look at, we're going to come over here to my blood orange tree, is sooty mold. It's this dusty blackish brown stuff that ends up all over your leaves. And it's actually not a particular disease, but it's a symptom. So what happens is lovely sucking insects like aphids and scale, they come, they suck on the leaves, and they excrete this sweet sticky stuff called honeydew, and it gets all over your leaves. Well, then lovely black sooty mold is a fungus that grows all over that sticky honeydew. So it's not exactly a problem in itself, except that it blocks the leaves from being able to absorb as much sunlight. So you may just notice your trees start to struggle. And that's what I've seen with this orange tree this year. You can kind of see, I'll take you a little closer to the leaves, that everything just looks a little pale, a little dull, and you can see that film over everything. So let me tell you what I do to take care of it, what I'm about to do to this tree. What I like to do is just make a little bit of soapy water solution and literally wipe down all the leaves. It may seem a little excessive and like extra work, but to me it's worth it if it means the tree is going to recover quicker and be healthier for the next growing season. So I'm going to take the time to wipe down all of that sooty mold and get it off the leaves so it's not a problem anymore. And then once the tree is clean and I've gotten rid of all of that, once again, our good friend neem oil is going to help prevent those aphids and scale and other pests from really taking hold again. You may have to repeat spray to keep them at bay, and that's what I didn't do so well this year, but for the most part, it really is as simple as that. I'm still wiping down leaves, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot. But it is making a big difference, so I'm just gonna put on a podcast and go to my happy place and keep wiping. The thing to remember is that a healthy tree is going to be able to fight off all of these things: pests, diseases, weather stress, neglect on the part of the tree owner. A healthy tree can withstand those things better. So when in doubt, go back and check in with those basic care needs. Are you watering adequately? Are you feeding your potted citrus trees in particular? And does the tree get enough sunlight? Often it's the basic things that need adjusting just to make the tree healthier and happier overall. Just like a healthy person can withstand stress a little bit easier, so can a healthy tree. I want to refer you back to some resources on the Fruit Grove blog. I've got an article about yellowing citrus leaves, curling leaves, lots of other how to care for articles that you can check out in the description. Or as always, just leave me a comment and let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully this has been helpful for you, and the next time you notice your citrus leaves shouting at you, I hope that you're armed with some answers and some action steps that you can take to make your tree a little bit happier and healthier. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.